Going live. Hello, we are live. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk. I am your co-host, David Farkas. I'm joined, as always, by Josh Lehrer.
Hello, everyone.
We've got Jose Rivera producing the show.
Hello, hello.
And the usual suspects, Kirsten Vignes and Peter Dooling, hanging out in the chat to help you guys out, drop some links. So today is a special edition of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk. Feels like we just did this for the Q2 monochrome, but
Yes,
we're back at it again, right?
We are with it's been a couple of weeks, more than a couple, a longer break than usual, since after this we are done for the year. Not that there's much of the year left, but yes, as is now become our favorite thing when Leica releases something cool, we do a show about it. So today, what are we talking about, Mr. Farkas?
We're talking about one of these.
My guess would be that one.
I feel like it's this one.
Yes.
My sense is tingling. They all kind of look similar, but this one, you'll notice, has the blacked out Leica lettering, which means this is the new SL2-S.
Yes, so the SL2-S is a variant of the SL2 full-frame mirrorless EVF camera. It was released about a week ago or so. I've already lost track.
Last Thursday.
Was it?
Last
No, a
Thursday.
little more than a week ago, and represents something a bit different, but yet something familiar. We've just had the chance to get our hands
Grubby
on
mitts?
this. Yes,
Our grubby mitts,
it's very, very fresh for both of us. So we are as excited as I imagine a lot of people are who are
Nice.
watching this. I'm pretty sure some of our customers got theirs before even we got the chance to play with it. But of course, David and I have been putting it through our processes.
Yeah, both doing kind of our unique things. So Josh did some, comparative testing against all the things, right?
Everything, or at least as many things as I can think of, people are going to ask me about, although I'm
So-
sure I'll have missed something.
So did you compare the new SL2S to an M3 with Fuji Asti?
I did miss that one, although maybe it's at the lab now. I don't know. It's,
What about M8.2?
ooh,
Missed the two.
I don't have one.
All
I'm
right.
so sorry. So yes, we have a lot to cover. I think before we dive into the questions, of which we have many that were submitted ahead of time,
And I see a bunch coming in here now.
David, do you want to just kind of give a primer, sort of what is the SL2S and what makes it, in general, what makes it different than the SL2 that we all know and love?
Sure. So the SL,
Nope.
I'm moving it out of the way.
Okay.
I know. This one has a bump. This one doesn't.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Okay. I'm going to move that.
Yes.
I'm gonna
Some space.
Get
There
up.
we go.
Actually, maybe put a smaller lens on here.
You want to put a 750 SL.
Yeah, let's put a Summicron on each one just to make them the same size. I think that.
Clearly, we were prepared for this.
I think that is the
That's
most.
a 60 TL. So why don't you put on a? There we go.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay, just do a little swappy swap.
Boop, boop, boop.
Bam.
Okay.
Now we're good.
There we go. Let's set these guys right there.
Okay.
Okay.
Close up. There we go. Let's get it.
Get after it. Okay.
Yes.
So what I've got here is this is the new SL2S and this is the SL2. Obviously, the easiest way to tell them apart, and the way I'm telling them apart right now, is because right here you can see this has white Leica lettering and this one has blacked out Leica lettering. Apart from that, the only other visible difference is going to be on the hot shoe. And you can see here, this is white lettering. This is like SL2. And, oh, are we a little jumpy? Looks like we're a little jumpy.
Yeah.
Hold on one second, guys. Taking a look at the connection real quick. I have a sneaking suspicion.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Couple of hiccups in the beginning. We were rusty. We haven't done this in a couple of weeks. It was a break. You got something. You have the screw up live stream program activated. Sometimes you forget to turn that off.
Sometimes, but I don't think so.
Okay.
All right. So let's see what we look like here. Of course, YouTube thinks differently, but that's all right. All right, let's get back at it. Hopefully we're better. If anyone can comment, let's see. Nope. Everyone seems to be okay. All right. So again,
Well, someone said video is really laggy.
video's laggy. Okay, we're working on that. Let's see. No, I think we have
caught up.
I think we are caught up and we fixed it. Sorry about that, guys.
Just let us know. We obviously can't see what we're doing always. So.
Okay.
Yes.
So here we've got the SL2, and again, white lettering, white identification on the top of the hot shoe here, and on the SL2-S, we've got the blacked out Leica lettering there, and blacked out SL2-S there. Okay, now, let me scoot those over.
There's a dog in the background.
The big difference is going to be, well, let me talk about what is the same. Pretty much everything. All the features that we know and love from the SL2 are now in the SL2-S. So we've got the same 5.68 megapixel OLED EVF built-in viewfinder, which is amazing, the iRes EVF, right? We've got the same 3.2-inch touchscreen, flanked by the, go back to the close-up there, just so we can get a better look. All right, and we've got the same unified 3-button interface with the joystick control, the thumb wheel, okay, on-off switches in the same spot, and we've got the same top display as well as the custom function buttons there, and we've, of course, have the 2 custom function buttons right here as well. So very, very customizable. Now, under the hood is where things deviate, because the SL2-S now has a 24 megapixel, what's called a BSI.
You're pointing at the wrong one.
It's called, thank you.
You're welcome.
There, come back to the big shot so you don't notice which is which. I'll just cover that up.
Not as embarrassing. There we go.
So the SL2-S, this one, has a 24 megapixel BSI-CMOS sensor. And that stands for backside illuminated sensor technology versus the 47 megapixels that we have in the SL2. So it's a little confusing, the BSI terminology, because backside illuminated makes it sound like there's like lights on the back of the sensor shining through.
Yes, not the case.
That's not the case. It's a little bit odd nomenclature, but what it means is all the supporting electronics, because all those pixels all that information needs to be processed and sent downstream off the chip. So there's a lot of electronics and wiring in the camera itself, in the sensor itself, I should say. Normally, they're next to the pixel sites, and the micro lens kind of covers that to increase the surface area. But on a BSI sensor, all the electronics are moved to the backside, the BS part of the BSI, the backside of the sensor, and that clears up the whole front for being photosensitive area. So that, combined with the fact that we're using half the resolution, means the pixels are a lot larger than the SL2. And they're a lot larger, I should say, than the 24 megapixel sensor on the original SL Type 601. Okay, so we're seeing an improvement from the original SL at 24 megapixels to the new SL2-S at 24 megapixels, but with much more light sensitivity.
Yes. Yeah. So,
and I'd say that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, I mean, the BSI tech started with, well, I think Sony started it years ago, but really mobile phones, phone cameras is where it sort of gained traction, because initially it was very expensive to make on larger sensors, and there was a diminishing return factor when the tech was younger. So the low light performance gain wasn't as high as it was as the sensor got larger. So we predominantly saw it on cell phones. I think the iPhone 4 was the first phone that had a BSI sensor in it, if I recall. So, but now that the sensor technology has gotten cheaper to make and better, we can see a demonstrable benefit using the BSI tech on the SL2-S sensor. So I've been, reading about how they make these things in the past couple of weeks, and it's fascinating. They actually shave down the back of the sensor, so it's like, I think it's half the thickness, or it's quite a bit thinner. So it's really sophisticated stuff, which explains why we haven't seen it yet in a Leica camera. Because of course, people wonder, why haven't they done this already? Well, it takes time.
Well, and I think, judging from everything else that Leica's done over the years, is just like on the original SL, right? Everyone kept asking, when are you going to make this like a real mirrorless body? Yeah. And of course, Leica's joke is, well, of course we have the M. It is mirrorless. Yeah. Look, no mirror, right? And they're like, "You know what I mean? You know, an SLR-like mirrorless camera." And
How you doing over there?
I'm doing amazing. And what they'd always come back with is, we will do it when the technology is at a point that we find is appropriate and, you know, sufficient for Leica quality for our customers. And that's why they waited so long until 2015 for the original SL. And yet it came out with a 4.5 megapixel EVF, no blackout, 10 frames a second shooting.
It's still good.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's still extremely good today, 5 years later, more than 5 years since it was launched.
Which is a testament to Leica's kind of that philosophy of, we're not going to just replace it and replace it and replace it and let the technology catch up to our product.
Yeah.
They said, we're going to wait. Because when those questions started circulating about when are they going to make a mirrorless, I remember back in 2007, there was a QA at the LHSA meeting in Germany, and Stefan Daniel, head of product development, they were bombarding him with these questions. Or maybe it was 2010. And he said, you know, when are you going to do this? And meanwhile, EVFs on other cameras were like 1 megapixel.
Yeah, and terrible.
Maybe 2 megapixel. And he says, yeah, they're not there yet. It's not ready. And, you know, the blackout period from when you take a picture, like the whole viewfinder goes dark, that's unacceptable. So when the technology is ready, we'll do it, and you'll see. And of course, they came out so far ahead of the curve in terms of making it feel almost like an optical SLR in a mirrorless system. So, and 5 years on, I mean, this camera is still incredible and feels current, right?
Yeah, and for the money now, a pre-owned SL Type 601 is pretty good. You know, it's hard to say. Sometimes it's hard to fathom that a Leica is a good deal. A 601, I feel like, is one of the more underrated options out there, because the L mount, between what Leica offers in both L mount lenses and L mount adapters, and of course the L mount alliance with what we see with Panasonic and Sigma, you have this huge portfolio of options for lenses that are not the price of buying a brand new Leica lens. So a 601 for $2,400 suddenly gives you access to this huge, so many options: macro, telephoto, zoom. So the SL2-S, I feel like, is the natural progression as Leica continues to learn about how to make, there's a dog, how to make mirrorless cameras and how to make cameras with EVF. So I realize we probably have a lot of questions. Why don't we check a couple comments just to see if there's anything burning, and then we're going to get to our list.
Well, I'm going to tease this a little bit.
Yes.
So we talked a lot before this, and there was definitely some conclusions that you came to, conclusions that I've come to, and we definitely, it was one of these unfortunate situations, again, where we have to agree to agree.
Yes.
Because we're like, that's what I found, and you found that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about that in a little bit, and then also I probably have some videos queued up. I cut together. You know, I didn't have a whole lot of time with the camera, but I just wanted to show some video quality from the SL2-S, because that's really another area where Leica has tried to position the camera, is to make it even better for video than the SL2.
Yeah.
And the SL2 is great video. I mean, you're watching it.
Yeah. We're using an SL
right now.
SL2s right now.
Yeah, we've been using every single episode of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk has been filmed and streamed on an SL2. Or actually 2 SL2s. So, and then every video that we've done in the studio for the last year, also SL2. So the quality, I have been extraordinarily happy with the quality.
Yeah.
But the SL2-S is like...
Yeah. And it's important to mention that
amazing.
What Leica did a bit differently this time, and David will get into this further in the episode, is actually announce right alongside the announcement of the camera what some of the video-related firmware improvements are going to be through the next 6 months or a year, depending on whatever. So we kind of not only have this new product that's special and different, but also a bit of sort of idea what's coming and how it's going to be continued to be improved. And also, it gives you an idea of Leica's mindset and their logic as to what the SL2S's position is in their product lineup.
Right.
As they try to gravitate more towards video and cine and offering a higher level of features and quality in their
a true hybrid mirrorless camera system.
Yeah. And
even more so, and building on the SL2 and having something I wouldn't say purpose built for video.
Yeah. It's
Because-
not. No, it's not purposeful.
Because
video, but-
it's still extraordinarily good for photo.
yeah.
And that's something that we should touch on as well, because without looking at this, I know that there have been some questions that have come in that a few people said, well, why won't Leica just make a photo-only camera?
I mean, they do, but
They do.
It's called the M10R,
right?
but-
The M cameras have no video. The M10 generation, M10, M10R, M10P, M10 monochrome, no video. But why can't they make this camera with no video? I think honestly, it would just be limiting themselves.
And the reality is, the way they designed the SL2, and then of course by definition the SL2S, is the camera basically has two faces. When you're in stills mode, you're not experiencing any video settings or anything at all.
Right.
You press a button on the top of the camera,
Here, we can get a close up of that. and I'll
you
show you.
switch into video mode, and then it's a video camera. So
Right.
they've done a good job of separating the stills functionality, don't mind the slurping, from the video functionality
Right.
on the SL2 and the SL2S.
So what they're looking at right now is the photo menu, right? So when I hit, that's from me hitting the menu button down here. And if I just tap the video, now you can see the whole menu system changes. Now there's audio meters and all that. And this is now it's a video system. And one of my favorite features, and I think Josh, you'd agree with this, is that the video settings don't interfere with the photo settings.
Not at all.
No.
On the traditional sort of, well, before we had an SL2, there was always kind of a weird blend inside the camera's menu of like video and stills, and it was, you would say, I don't shoot video, this is just getting in my way.
Right. And I remember you had a workaround for that you'd
Yeah.
always tell people in the 601,
Yeah.
which is you'd set up user profiles.
Yes.
So if they wanted to do video, you'd set like a user profile called video,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
Cine or whatever you want to call it.
Right. We kind of made our own video mode. But now with the SL2 and then the SL2S, the camera has a totally independent photo mode and video mode.
Yep.
So I don't shoot video at all. David shoots tons of video.
But I also
and we
shoot a lot
both
of
use
photos.
we
Yeah.
both use the same. I mean, he shoots tons of stills. My point is, we both use the SL2 for sometimes very different things, and yet I don't think either of us feel that the features we're not using are getting in our way.
No, definitely
I don't.
not.
If you look at my favorites menu on my SL2 that I use every day, it's like 4 things, and I really never go outside of that because I've got it dialed in, and
Yep.
I'm using it. So I think I'm gonna guess that most of the questions people are asking are the usual questions we get on our show, which is called Red Dot Forum. How does this one camera compare to another talk? And I don't blame anyone because the new I want to know. I mean, that's
Sure.
what I spent my entire afternoon doing.
Yep.
Was testing the SL2S against as many things that I could fit into my schedule to get a feel for what does it do. Because you can look at the specs all day long, and we can talk about it all day long, but in the end, we want to see the images and we want to see the video. We want to see the output. Before I dive too much into that, anything burning in the comments here that we?
Let's take a look.
I just feel like we're gonna.
Oh my.
Yeah, there's so many. I can see them pouring in, and we obviously appreciate the participation.
Hello from everyone who sends us greetings.
Um,
That's just a cool name. I like Pickering, Ontario, Canada. That's a cool
Pickering, yeah.
Pickering.
Let's see.
Okay.
Keep going.
Keep
scrolling. Oh yeah, better now. Yeah. I don't want to relive when the video was.
Well,
choppy.
no, hold on. So I think we should address it because I kind of predicted this. So Jim says, I don't shoot video. Remove all the video functionality, drop the price $1,000, and I'll order. Well, they did drop the price over $1,000.
$1,100.
$1,100 for the
US.
SL2.
Yeah, in the US.
And I understand that a live view camera system like this is inextricably linked to video output because that's what your focus system is
what it
on.
is, yeah.
That's what your output on the viewfinder is. So incorporating those video features, and also I think they'd actually have to raise the price if they made it photo only because you then exclude potential buyers that could then have spread out that R&D cost.
Yeah.
So I think the thinking is actually backwards. If you wanted Leica to make a photo-only version of this, it would cost more.
Well, look at how much an M10R is.
Or the monochrome.
Or $3,500 more than an SL2S.
What about the monochrome?
And it does less. Monochrome, same thing. So, good point, David. Let's keep scrolling around. What do we got?
Yes, video is laggy. Hopefully not still.
We know. What does the S stand for in the SL2S? Nothing? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
This is a good question, and there is actually a real answer to that. So 20,000 Things asked, how will the video specifications be any better, even with firmware, if nothing has been done to improve cooling. Now that's an interesting point because the SL2-S doesn't have a runtime limitation because it doesn't have an overheating issue. And actually, the reason that this one gets better battery life than the SL2 is the fact that the sensor is more power efficient, and less power in means less heat out. So actually, the SL2-S runs a lot cooler than the SL2 by a good margin. But even that, on the SL2, we shoot video for hours at a time. I mean, hours at a time, and we do not have video.
A 2-hour live stream, or sometimes more than 2 hours if you watch enough shows. And we've sure had our share of technical issues, but never related to overheating.
No. So, and believe me, the studio gets kind of warm.
It's warm right now.
It's a little warm.
A little toasty in here.
So there's no heating issues. And the reason for that is also because the camera is a giant aluminum heatsink, and it was designed that way. So the sensor sits on the frame, on the chassis itself, and dissipates the heat out of the entire body. So it's not enclosed in a plastic shell like some other cameras where it kind of insulates that heat. And it doesn't require active cooling either. So what makes and I'd say even the SL2 is wonderful at heat dissipation because you can do very long exposures for landscape photography or astrophotography without it overheating either, with the sensor completely active. So no, it doesn't have a cooling problem. It never did on the SL2, and it's even better improved on the SL2-S.
All right, let's keep going.
What is the S?
I mean, I said that. We don't know what it is. The SL2 says
sexy.
I don't think so.
Speed.
Only if you're Elon Musk.
Speed, maybe? Speed.
Tom asks, how would you compare the shooting experience? What?
S stands for better.
Oh, Tom asks, how would you compare the shooting experience and results? I'm just going to address the first part first.
Go.
Of an SL2-S with an M lens versus an M10 with a VSI-CMOS. Well, we've definitely covered this a lot on many episodes, so I won't spend too much time on it, but the VSI-CMOS is a stopgap. It's not nearly as good as the SL2 or SL2S's built-in EVF. So you shoot an M for the M experience, and I use the VSI-CMOS to augment that. I don't use it as its primary use case most of the time, depending on the lens. Whereas the SL2 or the SL2S or even the SL601, you're only using it that way. There is no alternative. So the rangefinder experience, both physically and mechanically and functionally, is so unique. Yes, the VSI-CMOS exists, and yes, it does work and allows you to focus very critically with lenses like the Noctilux, but it doesn't really make the M10 into what I would call a true EVF camera because it's not integrated. It's just tacks onto the top, and it's fine. But the finder in the SL2 and the SL2S, and I'll cover this later about what makes the SL2S different, is superb. It's phenomenal. I mean, there's no comparison. I find it dramatically easier to focus M lenses precisely using the SL2 EVF than I do with the VSI-CMOS. So,
well, I think there's reasons. Also, you're going from a 2.4 megapixel add-on EVF on a camera that, remember, doesn't have video functions.
Yeah.
So it's not really optimized for live view output. It does live view output, I think, at 30 frames a second. The SL2S is actually reading off the sensor 120 times per second. And that gives you a very fluid, very clean view. And also being, so low noise with live output because of the video functionality, you get that really smooth, fluid EVF experience.
All right, let's see what else we got in there. Keep scrolling. I don't know how we're coming through. I guess we're having some issues, but
yeah,
we'll power through like we always do. I mean, I could hear myself talking, and honestly, that's really good enough for me. Keep scrolling.
Blinking every minute or so?
It's weird.
Okay.
I mean, I'm blinking every couple of seconds, but keep scrolling.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
The 75 Noctilux is on the table, Zishan. It's right here. Just hiding behind the 1635 SL.
William Hudson, is the menu complex? Actually, I'd say
no.
The menu is one of the simplest menus to operate. And that doesn't just go for the SL2, the SL2S, because this menu system that's in here, apart from the video still modes, actually on some of the cameras it is that way, but carries across to the entire portfolio of current Leica digital cameras. They all have this new unified menu system. So if you pick up a Q2 and you pick up an SL2S, there's no learning curve. I mean, the cameras operate exactly the same.
Yeah.
If you switch over to an M10, it operates the same, just doesn't have video.
Yeah.
So actually, it's really, really simple.
And as well, and I joked about this before, but I was serious, that the customizability between custom functions and the favorites menu of, well, the M10, but specifically the SL2 and the SL2S allows you to rarely ever have to dive into the main menu. At least in my experience, I'm almost never, ever, ever going into the main menu and scrolling through the 5 or 6 pages of settings because I have my custom functions and favorites menu configured, and I don't have to. That's it.
Yeah, like I'll show you. Let's switch to another close-up here. I'll show you one of my, and this isn't just the SL2. Again, this carries through the whole range. Okay, but on the SL2 and the SL2S, there are more custom function buttons. On say like the CL. The CL, there's one function button on the back.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's in the same spot. But let's talk about that for a second. Okay, so right here, it's an audio game right now. Right here, there's a button that says function. Okay, so you guys can see that. And if I press it, this is right now toggling my display. Okay, so you can see I've got all my information here. I've got a grid and a level. I've got no level, right? And I've got a clean display. But what if I want to program this for something else? All I have to do is push and hold. And then what it does is it gives me a little immediate menu here. So let's say that I want to change focus mode with that. So I selected focus mode. Now, the next time that I just tap that once, you'll see here, now I can change my focus mode. And I never had to go into the menu to do that. I didn't have to even go in the menu to reconfigure what this button does. And on the SL2 and the SL2S, this rear function button is assignable. This one right here next to the EVF is assignable. The 2 top buttons are assignable. And the 2 right here on your grip that I'll cover up if I hold it. And they all can be set exactly the same way. So all I have to do, let's say to set my top button here, is I just push and hold. And again, it brings me to a separate menu of, do I want, ISO with that? So when I push that, I can dial in my ISO settings. Okay, It also works very intuitively. It's going to be a little hard to do it backwards, but let's try.
I think I turned off the touch screen. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I can just do it by touch as well.
Yeah.
Or if you're on the main menu screen here, and let's just switch back to photo for a second.
You're doing it backwards. You're doing good.
Thank you. If we switch to photo for a second, you'll see here is the ISO setting. And if I tap it, you can see that I don't even have to dig into the menu at all. I can just adjust ISO like that. Sweet. And this, I actually use this feature a lot when I'm out shooting because I don't have to dig through the menu. I don't have to navigate the top display. I can control almost every major feature from the touchscreen interface. So it's extraordinarily intuitive. And we didn't even touch, Josh mentioned the favorites.
Yeah.
When you hit the menu button, again, for the first level, it brings up what you can assign as favorites. And you can set anything you want to that. Combined with the custom functions, combined with the touchscreen, you do not have to go scrolling through pages of pages of pages.
If you are doing that, you shouldn't. The first thing you should do when you buy a new SL2 or an SL2S is I have a little notebook. David's shown his a million times. Mm-hmm. And for the first week, I write down every feature that I use. And I look at those, I look at that list, and those things go in my favorites menu. Because after you set up the date and the time and the basic stuff, maybe you're changing 7 or 8 different things, focus mode, drive mode, whatever. That's what I put in my favorites menu.
Yep.
And that's it. And then I'm good to go. So keep that in mind. But let's keep going because we have so many questions to answer.
All right.
You want me to ask you or you want to ask me?
I'll ask you.
Okay. Fire away.
Okay. Ronald wants to know, in many respects, is it nothing more than a downgraded SL2? If not, then why is the M10R considered an upgrade over the original M10?
Well, the M10R is a high-resolution version of the M10, which also incorporates features from the M10P. So that's really...
We know what R stands for there. Resolution.
Yeah, so that's really 2 jumps, right? Because M10P, M10R. Mm-hmm. So the sort of functionality or the purpose of the M10R is to be a high-resolution more dynamic range version of the M10 with the M10P features. The SL2's purpose in life, if you will, is not to be high resolution. Obviously, it's to have better low light performance and better video performance, primarily. Now, the SL2 has great low light performance. The M10R has even better low light performance. And the SL2 is, in my opinion, now the new standard bearer for
The SL2-S.
SL2-S.
Yeah.
Yes, SL2-S. SL2-S is now the standard bearer. So it's $1,100 less expensive than an SL2, which is fine with me. It does some things better, but it does not have as much resolution. So there are certain things you can't do that you can do with an SL2, which is why we have both in terms of what we have available to us should you need to buy one. We have some fans over there. I don't want to hear about the... Keep going.
Yeah.
I mean, what time is it? 8:30. So we could probably talk about the number one question,
We've got some.
which is obviously a high ISO comparison.
Nobody wants to hear about that.
No? Okay, we'll skip on that. No, so today I tested primarily the SL2-S.
Well, let's see. Let's see. Does everyone join in yet?
I think we're doing pretty good. Well, this is going to be a long discussion, so let him. I mean,
Do you want to cover ISO now?
I feel like now's the time to do it. Oh, was there any other questions that we should cover before?
I want to kind of get through.
I don't want anyone to miss it.
Questions.
That's like okay. We got like 80,000 questions. This is awesome. I love it. Okay.
All right. Ooh, wow. Hold on. Bear with me a second, guys.
Let's see. We're looking. Your hands in the way. Switch to SL2-S.
Yes. I could. Jong has a good question there.
Okay. Why don't I ask you?
Sure.
Jong asks, is there any upside having the SL2-S for a video backup camera? Just started taking videos with the SL2.
Yes. I mean, they work fabulously well together. You're going to get a very similar kind of look and feel, obviously using the same lenses. And remember what I said, they're exactly the same camera otherwise. So I think the SL2-S makes a great complement to an existing SL2. In my mind, certainly the way I'm thinking about it is the SL2-S isn't what I call an or camera. It's an and camera. If you're already an SL2 person, because I am an SL2 person. I've used this camera the most over the last year plus.
Me too.
Okay, this is my go-to camera by and large for my primary activity, which is landscape photography. For Josh, it's the landscape of different things.
Cars and
other things.
Watches and dogs and whatever.
But it's really, really flexible, really powerful in terms of the image quality it produces and just the form factor, the usability, the feature set, the image stabilization, the view, all of those things that make the SL2 great also make the SL2-S great at a different resolution. I think this is a great and camera, both for additional low light capability, as well as high ISO, kind of goes hand in hand. But if you have these two cameras on set, I think you'd be hard pressed if we had our wide shot here on an SL2 and our close-up camera as an SL2-S, you probably wouldn't be able to tell them apart in the studio here because they're going to blend together really, really well.
And I'm actually going to interrupt you and ask you a question from Curvier related, which is, will you guys replace the SL2 with the SL2-S as the camera used throughout our videos?
Yes.
Once we have more availability?
Yes.
Yes, we are going to swap out these two SL2s for two SL2Ss once cameras are available, which they're not readily right now, but that's because it came out last week.
Which also frees up a camera that because we are going to be doing a little bit of studio revamping for the new year. That's our resolution. That hasn't happened yet, but we're getting there. But for instance, doing, say, like an overhead camera or another angle.
Yeah.
Having an additional camera now, if we can add to our roster. Yeah. Obviously, the SL2s aren't going away.
Right.
One of these cameras I use personally for photo work, so it is going to stay there. But I'd say they are going to see more action in the field for still photography, and the SL2Ss are going to take over the main video functions. And there's other reasons behind that, which we can probably, which we are going to get to.
Yeah. Let's keep scrolling around there though. What else we got? More. Keep going.
Yes, that's that's true. The Leica 240 did have video.
It does. And if you want to shoot video with an M camera, you can buy a 240.
It's actually the only way to shoot video with an M camera, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. it's a little. I think we're going to wait on this one too, but I'm going to address this. Subash wants to know, how does the video look at ISO 6400? On the SL2, it's difficult to use past ISO 1600. I mostly agree with you there. So that's like, for instance, what you're watching right now, just to give a frame of reference. In studio, we're shooting the SL2s at 800 ISO, and I think it looks perfect. Obviously,
you're looking at us.
We're looking at it.
We may not be perfect, but
we may not be perfect, but
the video quality is good.
You know, but you have these really deep shadows. You have skin tones, bright stuff like a white shirt, and at 800 ISO, we have plenty of dynamic range. Image quality is really good. But I agree. As you go up, it's challenging because video doesn't really have the same kind of noise reduction that you'd have with still photography. You know, in Lightroom, it's easy to just drag a slider, noise reduction. Video is a little bit more complicated because every single frame changes. And yes, there's plugins. Yes, like DaVinci Resolve has noise reduction of some sort, but by and large, it's you want to shoot as clean as possible right off the bat.
We'll get to ISO a little bit more detail.
The answer is it looks great, but I'm actually going to show you samples in a little bit of both an ISO ramp-up test at every ISO, and then also real-world video that I shot.
Let's keep scrolling. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
That's a good one for you. It's just more of a comment. Steven says, you guys really nailed the key difference, which is the BSI sensor, like on the M10 monochrome and the M10R and the the S3.
Yeah.
It's a game changer, and few reviewers have figured this out. You guys nailed it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But
Leica nailed it. We were just telling you.
Leica nailed it. We just talked about it. Thank you. But I do want to clarify, just for the sake of clarity, the SL2-S is the first Leica in the roster to feature a BSI sensor. So the other ones you mentioned, the M10 monochrome, the M10R, and the S3 use a different technology to achieve a similar result, which is what's called a dual gain architecture, or a dual gain sensor. So it has basically two native ISOs, both at low, and then again somewhere in the middle of the range to kind of give it a second wind and make it perform really cleanly above that. The BSI approach is basically just try to make it as clean as possible from the get-go for as long as possible. Both obviously are very effective. I mean, the M10 monochrome is
insane.
I mean,
I think
a beast.
Yeah, I mean, M10 monochrome. If you shot one, we have that camera is unstoppable at every ISO pretty much.
It's actually just stupid.
Yeah, and the fact that it's 40 megapixels and has that kind of high ISO performance is really what makes it amazing. Keep going, keep going, keep going. When will they start shipping? They have been shipping. Well, they just started shipping. So
here, you should talk about that. So
Leica has a promise they're going to release firmware to improve the focusing. Yeah, we get this. I know this question.
Is it going to be available to the SL2? If not, is the SL2 going to be inferior?
We don't know if Leica is going to incorporate any of the SL2-S functionality in the SL2. It is logical to assume they would. We can't speak for Leica because we're not Leica. All I think David and I would agree on is that we hope they do that. And they certainly have a history of major firmware updates for their pro body models, S cameras and SL.
I'll give two examples of why we think this is going to happen. Both came out last week, which is one was Capture One support. Capture One support launched in tandem with the SL2-S announcement, but simultaneously it was also available to the SL2 with full support, as well as the S3. So Leica didn't limit that to the SL2-S. They rolled out support across the top of the range. Also, there's kind of a fancy little secret firmware thing that we'll do an article about, which is there's upgraded SL lens firmware now.
This is pay attention, people.
Pay attention.
So last week,
yes,
Leica,
under the radar,
Leica introduced new firmware when
2.0
using the SL2 and the SL2-S. Not yet with the 601. Maybe never. I don't know. SL2 and SL2-S firmware for, I think, almost all the lenses.
Except for not the 51.4, not the 1635.
Right. All the other ones. And what does it allow you to do, David?
So finally, and I can show you guys, finally, there's always...
Well, I did it on the 24-90, so only this one has it.
Okay.
Yeah, I only wanted to do one so you can see the difference. Here we go.
Well, I should show what it looks like without.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, let's
So I updated the 24-90 earlier today so that we could show you guys what it looks like. So this is...
Because to be clear, now this is not body firmware, but
it's
lens firmware, right?
Right, you need to update the lens via the body, but the firmware doesn't do anything to the camera other than activate a menu that was previously deactivated, which David will now show you.
I will try to show
It's
you.
in the beginning.
It is.
Focusing.
There we go. Okay, and I want to walk through that from the
close up here.
get-go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so you can see I'm in the main menu on the first page. Maybe you can see.
That looks
there we
good.
go.
Yeah.
Yep. And if I go this way, you'll see, notice at the bottom, MF setup, standard MF, and it's grayed out. Nothing happens. Yes? Okay, we're paying attention now, right? I'm gonna turn this off. Now this is a non-updated lens. I feel like a magic trick right now.
Nothing on my sleeve.
That's just nothing, nothing here.
There we go. So we just put on a 24-90 that I updated this afternoon. There we go. You're a little out of focus there.
I am, but let me get into the menu here. Yep, okay.
Do you good? And now you look good.
Okay, so we're gonna go focusing.
Oh,
Oh, something's different.
Mm-hmm.
MF setup. What is this? What do we have here? Now we have the options of standard MF, which is the regular behavior, 90, 120, a whole bunch of different angles, all the way up to 360 and then maximum. So what these allow you to do now is actually, this is what's called linear autofocus.
Or manual focus.
That linear action manual focus, because the focus in the SL lenses is all fly-by-wire. As good as this feels, that drag, it is not mechanically linked. There's no gears here. It actually is pretty clever. There's Leica measures the change in magnetic polarity. I am not making that up.
Tell them what the changes are.
I am not making that up. They measure the change in magnetic
going
polarity.
down the rabbit hole now.
Okay. So what that means is if I set 90 degrees, that means that that's going to be from close focus to infinity at 90 degrees.
You're basically changing the length of the focus throw of the lens. So if you put it at 360, the one full turn goes from minimum to infinity. If you put it at 90, a quarter turn goes from minimum to infinity.
Or let's say 180.
Maximum is like 4 turns or something crazy. It's the maximum.
It's like, it's like
I like 360
macro.
for stills. I think for video, you may use something different. But it's essentially allows you a fine-tuned control over the length of, or the amount of turning you have to do to go from the lens's minimum focus distance to infinity.
Yes.
It's
and this,
super cool.
by the way, is so incredibly welcome for not just still photographers. It is nice for still photographers because if any of you guys are using an SL2 and you've ever tried to tweak manual focus very, very slowly,
crazy.
and you're like, it's not moving.
Yeah.
It's not your imagination. It's not moving because you're moving it too slowly. The camera's like, oh no, he doesn't really want to move it.
Yeah.
And then you move it a little bit too fast and it jumps.
Yeah.
And then you comes back and
Drives you nuts.
It drives you crazy.
Yeah.
So we've been asking for this for, well,
a while.
a long time.
Yeah.
And then for video, like right now, our secondary camera's on a motion control system. So it goes back and forth, it pivots up and down, that
Pretty
way.
cool.
Right, very cool. And there's also what's called a follow focus, a motorized follow focus. And that has a little gear that turns. But the problem is if the lens doesn't have a predictable focus throw in degrees, it is very tricky to figure out where the focus is going to be on a cine follow focus system. So if you're using this on a gimbal, if you're using it on a motion control system or just a regular cine rig, this allows you to pull remote focus very accurately and very predictably. And because you can set the angle, means that you can have it the same across all the lenses, and you can have it the same with manual, let's say, the manual throw on an M lens. You can measure the degrees here. This is a 90-degree focus throw on this 21.
So this is, again, like a secret firmware they just kind of snuck out. I mean, it's available for download on Leica's website, but they didn't really publicize it.
No.
We'll have an article on Red Dot Forum next week about it with a link.
We're playing with it still.
And we're still want to make sure we can properly articulate it.
Well, and just to loop all the way back, where this started is saying this was a feature they rolled out for the SL2-S. It coincided with the launch of the SL2-S. It was immediately compatible with the SL2.
But let's be clear, it's not built into the SL2S's firmware. You do have to update your lenses whether you have an SL2 or an SL2S. Just
Yes.
FYI on that.
Yes.
It came out after the SL2S came out. Whew, a lot of questions, probably. My goodness.
You can answer that one. Here, Josh.
Yes.
Ken's wants to know, describe the difference in cropped images from the camera, please. Cropped image shooting mode.
Yes, if you put the SL2 in APS-C mode by either changing it in the settings on the menu or attaching a TL mount lens, it's a 20 megapixel 1.5 crop. 20 megapixels from 47. If you put the SL2S in APS-C mode or attach a TL lens, it's 10 point something, 10.2 megapixels.
Same as the SL601.
Same as the 601. So it's a lot less usable for anything other than social media and small to medium-sized prints. I use TL lenses on the SL2 all the time. I do not plan on using them on the SL2 at all, or the SL2S at all, because I think 10 megs is a little bit low for me, in some rare exceptions, but I have two different cameras and I'll use them two different ways. So the SL2, I'll happily use 60 macro TL for all my close-up work. If I'm going to use the SL2S, I just wouldn't use it for that. I'd use it for something else.
Yeah, here's an easy one. From MH Narvaez.
Doing great.
Thank you. Mariano. I do time-lapse photography. Does the SL2S have a built-in intervalometer?
Yeah, both the SL2 and the SL2S allow you to choose the number of frames, the time in between each frame, and the time until it starts taking the first frame, which is also, I show you here, a way to get, hang on, here we go. So I don't know if I can get a close-up on me, Jose, if you can kind of rotate it. Yep. The SL2 and the SL2S have a 2-second or a 12-second self-timer. I've definitely had people ask me why there can't be a customizable self-timer. Well, there actually is, because, here we go, we got a close-up going. If you are, can we see that? Yeah. If you choose the number of frames in the intervalometer mode to just 1.
Aren't you clever?
Because I'm doing great here. Here we go. Okay, just 1. I'm just gonna, sorry. There we go. If you choose 1 frame for the intervalometer for time lapse, you can then choose the countdown, which is the amount of time the SL sits before it takes the start of the time lapse. Well, in this case, the time lapse is just 1 image. So you can actually have a completely customizable self-timer. You can choose seconds or minutes. So if you want a 4-second self-timer, I'm bouncing around, my apologies. Here we go. You can just do a 1 frame intervalometer shot with a 4-second countdown.
That's cool.
So kind of a secret hack, if you will, on the SL2 and the SL2S.
I like secret hacks.
I like me too. So it's a customizable self-timer.
I gotta admit, I never even considered doing that.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you said, I was like,
I know where you're going with this. Yeah. So there you go. So just a little random tidbit.
I like that.
And yeah, so both the SL2 and the SL2S have intervalometer functionality. So
and the Q as well. Okay.
So to update the SL lens, you have to download new firmware. Just to quickly get to Bob's question. Yes, the firmware is just like doing the camera, except when you go to the menu in the camera, instead of camera firmware and then update, you just go to lens firmware. And the Leica gives you instructions, and we'll have instructions on our post.
So PhotoWorks here says, the Wetzlar streaming today said, I didn't even know Wetzlar was streaming today, said the SL2 firmware will come out 2.5 months later with the same SL2S updates.
Okay.
I haven't verified that, but
So you say. That's cool.
I believe you,
Would be
and
great
that's
if that was
great.
true. Yeah.
So clearly Leica, I think it's just another example of, Leica is not like some other camera companies that really pigeonhole features for specific cameras and say, oh, well, this camera is for video, so we're not going to give you these great photo features. And this camera is for photo, so we're not going to give you these video features.
So I think we're at the peak of the show right now. We got to get into the ISO topic.
Okay. Well, also...
there's going to be an infinite number of questions. We could be here till 3 a.m, but I think...
we can answer that one real quick.
Which one?
William wants to know, what lens would you use for taking videos?
Oh, well, I don't know.
Any lens.
Depending on your creative objectives.
Well, Josh touched on it a little earlier, which is the L mount is incredibly flexible. So right now, what you're watching us on is a Leica 24-90 Vario SL lens, and then our close-up camera is a Leica 90-280 millimeter Vario Leica lens. So these are native SL lenses. This is the 24-90 right here. Yes, we have more than one of them. One is over there. One is here.
We have 3.
We have 3.
Yes, because they're cool like that.
This is a little large if you're going to use it on a gimbal or handheld. although I have used it and it is a great handheld lens, just as a walk around everything lens. But you can also use M lenses. They're fantastic for video, and you get more of that classic Leica M glass look. I think, like the 35-1.4, the 50-1.4 would be, M lens is fantastic for video, especially if you're shooting people. It gives a very classic, very natural look to it. So this is going to be really nice for video. And of course, the Mac Daddy, and one of Josh's favorites.
The 75 Noctilux.
I'm just going to point to it. That's the 75 1.25 Noctilux. Maybe one of the just best lenses.
The best lens ever?
One of the best Leica M lenses for cine applications on the SL that I can think of.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of choices. A lot of people have been adapting older R glass. You can use PL mount lenses with an adapter.
You can use almost anything you want.
You can use anything you want.
It's pretty wild. Okay, can we talk about the good stuff now? I'm raring to go.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
Yes. Okay.
I'll let you have it.
Well, this is a joint discussion here. Everybody wants to know, how does the SL2-S perform at high ISO?
Josh, how does the SL2-S perform at high ISO?
Thank you, David.
I want to know.
The answer is extremely well. Moving on. No.
We're done. We're done.
So my testing was this afternoon primarily focused on the SL601 against the SL2 against the SL2-S. And here's what I discovered. Just in terms of noise performance, the SL2-S is about 2.75, not quite 3, but almost 3 stops better than the SL2.
Let's call it 2 2/3.
Sure. Somewhere between 2 and 3 stops, meaning you could shoot ISO 25,000 on the SL2-S, and it's going to be like ISO 4,000 or so. You can't actually set 4,000, but that's about where it's going to be. So dramatic improvement. Now, the original SL actually has a very, very slight edge in high ISO over the SL2, simply because it has larger pixels.
Yeah.
And this is not a secret. We've talked about it before.
Physics.
It's nominal, but it's there. So you really had about a 2.25 stop advantage. It's about the same, the net difference. So the SL2-S, in my mind, is the highest performing high ISO camera Leica makes right now. I have put it against the M10 monochrome. The problem is that the resolution difference and the fact that one is a native black and white sensor make it really, really, really hard to compare, because as soon as you convert a color file to black and white, it changes the noise profile and it gives up some data. So they're very close in noise performance, but in my mind, I'm not comparing the M10 monochrome and the SL2-S simply because they're so, so different. The SL2-S to me is the ultimate low light camera when it comes to speed and flexibility. Now, there's another benefit that I didn't know about until this afternoon when I started doing some more testing, which is I put the camera on a tripod and I put a 51.4 M lens, actually. I put this lens on there with the M adapter L. And I started with the SL2. And of course, the first thing you do is you focus critically with the joystick and you zoom in and you're like, hey, okay. And I was focusing on the tag on a camera bag. Not very exciting. But there's fine text. Focusing, got my shot, do my tests, switch cameras, put the SL2-S on there. Do the same thing. Immediately, I was able to get focus on that bag tag way faster than I could on the SL2. And I said, that's kind of weird. I was like, is that because I had the lens kind of already there, or what was going on? Did it again. I said to myself, something looks different. I know the SL2 and SL2-S share the same hardware in the
same
EVF.
EVF, yeah.
It's the same EVF, exactly the same. So what was happening, what I discovered is that in lower light situations, not only does the high ISO performance of the SL2-S trump the SL2 by 2.5 plus or minus stops, the crispness, the sharpness, and the detail rendering in the EVF on the SL2-S is about that much better than the SL2 as well. In good light, it's nominal. I can't really tell.
Right.
But as soon as I went into my office, I turned off everything but my little desk lamp, and I focused on a lens box that I had. And it was so striking that I had Ashlyn, our colleague Ashlyn, come into my office and said, Ashlyn, come here. And I didn't tell her which camera was which. I put the same lens on both. I did a blind test. I'm like, just focus on this box with each one of these cameras and tell me if one of these viewfinders looks different. And she didn't know which camera was which.
Wow.
She didn't know why I was asking. And she immediately said, oh, this one's easier to focus. And of course, it was the S.
Wow.
So if you are a low light shooter, not especially with M lenses, but with anything, you're getting dramatically improved high ISO performance. and you're getting a much easier to crisply manually focus EVF. With the 75 Noctilux, or the 50 Noctilux, or the 35 Summilux, or the 50 Lux SL, you have unbeatable. I mean, it's like rangefinder levels of low light performance. Like
That's a bold statement.
it's crazy. And I had no idea. It's not like you can really publish that in the specs, because it's not really, it's more like something you have to experience. So that's what I want to get across here is the SL2-S is the best M lens low light focusing camera that Leica makes right now.
Wow.
I'm sorry to say that to all them
Well,
shooters.
that definitely shoots in color, maybe.
Yes, that shoots in color. So I was blown away.
Wow.
So better than the M10R for sure. Now, not in terms of detail. The M10R is 40 megapixels, so it's a higher res camera. Different purpose. To me, the low light performance at high ISO, the viewfinder performance, and the basically limitless buffer size,
Well, we didn't even touch on that
which
yet.
we haven't talked about.
Yep.
But some of those, and plus the blacked out front, make this the ultimate street camera, the ultimate speed camera, the ultimate low light camera.
S is for speed.
S is for somewhat better than other things. So that was a long ramble, but I guess
No, that's good information.
I think we have a lot more testing to continue doing against a lot of other cameras and more real world stuff to really see where it can do. Now that's about stills. David did a lot of video testing. What did you discover, David?
Well, the great thing about video is I can show you.
Aha!
I'm going to try to show you. We're going to try to show you. So, Jose, if you can cue this up, we found something definitely similar and maybe even more striking in the video side. So we're going to look at our ISO testing video, which is, I just took an X-Rite color checker target and very scientifically wrote on a Post-it note. There we go.
There we go. Look at that.
All right, now that one is at, I think we're starting at 400 ISO, which is the base ISO. I think it's playing, we'll see.
It's playing now. Yeah.
It's playing, okay. And it should, oh, that's 800. You see I actually use that same Post-it.
I like
Okay.
you're very sophisticated.
Now this is, I output this at native 4K, so that's 800 ISO, and obviously this looks great, but so does the SL2. And that's at, I think, 1600.
Not yet.
Oh, not yet. That's 1600. There we go.
Yep.
I do have about, I think, 8 seconds per, just so you guys can see them. And if you want, you can always go back and pause this video if you want to see what it looks like. I apologize. I think my house lights were flickering. This was not shot in the studio. This is shot just under, regular old overhead lights. Okay, now we're up to 3200 ISO. And what's really interesting isn't just the lack of noise, but also notice the color fidelity of the chart is hanging in there. And all I've done to balance these photos is these are shot in L-Log, and I applied the classic LUT that's downloadable from Leica's website, and I used the eyedropper white balance tool to click on the one of the white squares on the left-hand panel. Now we're up to 6400, if my vision serves me correctly.
You could have written that a little bit tinier, David.
Hey, listen, this is 4K, right?
I mean, you managed to put this together remarkably fast. So.
Okay, now that is 12,500, and that looks still amazing. Like, in fact, if I didn't have that that little key on the side there, you wouldn't even know that these are different video files. If I just played this all the way through,
you'd wonder, why are you showing me the same
why
video?
am I showing you the same color checker,
video,
right?
Yeah.
And you might wonder why I have, for so many seconds, but here we go. So this is 25,000. I mean, and it still looks amazing.
Yeah.
This is crazy. This is crazy. And it really echoes what Josh is talking about here. And I think I've got one last one. Video tops out on the SL2-S at 50,000. So we're about to hit, yeah, I didn't have enough runtime there. That's my hand. That's me. That's 50,000 ISO. And it looks incredible. The color fidelity there is fantastic. There's a little bit of noise, especially in those middle grays, and we're back to 400. So you can kick back to me now.
That's 50,000.
Yep. Oh, you're gonna. Oh, he's speed scrolling through these. All right. Yeah. So you guys just, like I said, pause the video. It's written right there what you get, and I was absolutely blown away. We were looking at this literally an hour ago. Well, an hour and a half ago. And I could not believe it. I could not believe how good this video looks.
And now
Because,
I look at this. I'm just gonna interrupt you on a giant super high res monitor.
yeah,
Right here.
yeah.
And I'm like, he's showing me 12.5, and I'm like, oh, is that like 3200? Like, no.
No.
What? Sorry.
It was, I mean,
Yeah.
floors me because there's no noise reduction on this. In case you guys want to know the tech stuff, I have this in the latest version of Premiere Pro, which, if you know anything about Premiere, it's a great program, and the one feature it lacks is it has no built-in noise reduction effect at all. So what you saw there, no noise reduction, just the LUT applied in an adjustment layer, and I dropped the exposure just maybe half a stop because that's how you shoot log usually. You kind of expose to the right, and that gives you a much cleaner file. But I didn't bring it down multiple stops. It's just very, very slightly just to make the exposures match each other. And again, I just clicked for white balance. Not shut under a beautiful full spectrum LED studio light. In fact, you could actually see flickering in those files at 24 frames a second with the light banding rolling there. That's flickering. So definitely not a high CRL light. And yet the color reproduction, this is what amazes me the most. It's not the fact that there's just no noise. The color looks the same at 400 ISO as it does at 50,000 ISO in video.
Yeah.
Everything, all logic, all common sense, all experience tells me your color saturation and color accuracy just take a nosedive at high ISOs. And it didn't. It doesn't. That's this guy right here. And wow. So, wow.
So hopefully that answers as many of the questions about the camera's low light performance as I'm sure there's more. But
This is too enthusiastic thumbs
it
up.
is a clear demonstration of the benefits of larger pixels and better tech. So you got the BSI tech,
amazing.
you got the low resolution. Combine that with the sensor-based stabilization, and this thing is practically unstoppable. I don't want to know how many questions have come in since we started going on about that.
Color, yes, I agree.
Interesting.
Oh, I should address this. Curvier says at 12.5, the brick detail starts to falter, but even at 50,000, you might have actually noticed in order to get the proper exposure, again, because it wasn't shot under studio lighting, it was shot, I mean, literally in my hallway of a brick wall, in front of a brick wall. And I did vary the aperture. So that is a little bit of a fault. If I was under studio conditions,
Yeah,
it would be better.
David's goal was to get data,
Just something
right,
quick.
data to show everyone. Obviously, we are just scratching the surface of what this is capable of, and eventually you'll be watching us.
Yeah.
On an SL2-S.
Yeah.
That's
So
the goal.
so actually, you will notice if you fast forward through those, you'll notice there's a depth of field difference between the brick that changes because your shutter speed range is limited. Obviously, you have to stop down because you can't, or open up at a certain shutter speed because I can't go any slower than like a 30th of a second. So video has its own limitations, and I didn't want to throw an ND filter on there because I didn't want to color the results at all. So I'm definitely going to repeat that test under controlled studio conditions with the correct lighting levels so that I can keep my aperture identical through that whole testing. So just bear that in mind. Look at the color chart. Don't look at the background.
I think I need to talk about something unrelated while you look through some of the comments.
Okay.
Nothing.
I'm going to look through the comments.
David's going to look through your So
and I'm going to calm
a
myself
few
down.
episodes ago, I talked about a new bag that I fell in love with, and I promised everyone who got the bag that they would get a haiku. So if you ordered the Overworth green bag from the episode, you got a handwritten haiku by me. Hopefully, some people who got it are watching this episode, and I literally handwrote it for everyone. So I had a lot of fun doing that, and I thought to myself, what am I going to do next if something else cool comes out? Because for me, I, as you know, get excited about new and funky and unusual and obscure things. So of course, when Oberth reached out to my colleague Kirsten and I with something new that was even more dramatic than the green bag, I was like, I need it. So then they told me there was only 20 being made for the world forever.
Oh.
And I was like, I definitely need it. So the bag I showed last time was the pine green Q2 bag. So the little guy, that wouldn't be appropriate for, of course, an episode about the SL2. You want something larger. Oberworth has their Harry and Sally bag, which is a nice medium-sized bag that you could fit an M kit or an SL2 with one prime. Now, there is a limited edition version of the Harry and Sally bag, which, if you are a Leica enthusiast, you will understand why it exists. If you are not a Leica enthusiast, you probably won't understand. And the reason is because it looks like this.
Ooh.
This is one of, so there's only 19 other ones in the world forever. This is the traffic red. That's what they call it. Oh, I call it Leica red. Like, probably not allowed to say that.
What's
Now-
interesting is it actually is coming across slightly orange on video here.
Yeah, but it is bright red. It's very much like the Leica red, which has a splash of orange in it. Now I freak out for this stuff because I have an embarrassing amount of camera bags, and I don't get excited about them. I just put stuff in them. Yeah, sure, I have some cool ones and whatever, but when I look at my shelf full of camera bags, I don't even see it anymore. I'm blind to it. So when I get the chance to put a bag on my shelf that catches my eye, that makes me feel special, you're damn right I'm going to do it. So I decided for this bag, I said the haiku is overrated. I've done the haiku.
No. Oh, no.
I'm going to now write, anyone who orders this bag from today's episode of QVC Shopping will get a limerick written by me, handwritten, about this bag. I haven't actually
There
written
once
it yet.
was a photographer named Josh.
That's right. Don't spoil it for that. I haven't written it yet. So I'm gonna write a limerick about this bag. So if you want one, it is the Harry and Sally Traffic Red limited edition. There's only 20. I have one, so you can't have this one. That means there's 19. It's of course it's a Harry and Sally, so the size is really nice. It's got a gray interior, which I will show you.
Aren't you guys so glad you came to learn about the SL2S?
Seriously, right? Look at that. Very nice size.
Here, put the SL2S in there so you can at least like.
No, I don't want to take
justify
the
it.
dividers out. They're brand new. I don't want to actually use this for that. I want to just put it on my shelf. So I have no self-control when it comes to this kind of stuff. Of course, if you've watched any of these episodes, you already know. But again, even though I love this Leica gear and I love all these cool toys that we have access to, it's hard for me to get super excited about something, especially visually, because it's all just kind of gray bricks. So yes, I am geeking out about this very red bag, and this is mine. You can't have it. Sorry, Julie.
Yeah,
It's mine now.
Art does say you're all set for Christmas. Red and green bags.
See, look at that. So
Exactly.
this is bigger than the Q2 bag, of course. This is M.
Yes.
M size. So
Well-
traffic red.
It's an and bag.
It's an Harry and Sally. If you want to know how my limerick writing skills are, this is the only way to find out.
Oh gosh. All right. Now
Now,
back
David
to
has time to hopefully actually write the comments while I geeked out over that.
our regularly scheduled programming.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So there was a question. I see Peter actually addressed it. One of the things we said was that the SL2S gets a lot of the features from the SL2. So, and I saw another question above saying, okay, if you're going out shooting landscape, would you take an SL2 or an SL2S? Yes. I actually, depending on what I'm shooting, I think I would take both. That is to say, I've had taken awesome landscape pictures with the original SL. At 24 megapixel, it turns out stunning quality. I have pictures in my hallway, not the one where you saw that. Down a little ways, not on brick, but drywall. I have pictures that I shot with the SL601 in Iceland, a series of pictures, and they look awesome. And they're this big at 24 megapixels. They look fantastic. The SL2 has certainly spoiled me for some of that resolution advantage, but I look back at my SL shots, and that because I shot this camera for 4 or 5 years, right? And 4 years. I shot it for a little over 4 years for a lot of my landscape activities, and I never look back at those photos like that would be a great photo if it was more than 24 megapixels. No, I say those were great pictures,
Yeah.
and I am so happy that I have them in my collection. So I think that I certainly would be willing to take the SL2S, especially given that low light capability, because where I'm visualizing is Northern Lights photography, which is you're always running up against ISO. Because you don't want to have too long a shutter speed because you want texture in the Northern Lights. You don't want it to be everything just a big blur of green. You want to have movement and motion, and you want sharp stars. And having that, also being able to shoot at higher ISO allows you to get more of the surroundings where it's not just lost in silhouette and not able to be pulled up. I think this would be a phenomenally good Northern Lights camera, and I think it would be a phenomenally good astrophotography camera. One of Leica's samples they showed off was of a Milky Way shot or something similar. astrophotography shot wide open on the 16 to 35, and it was at I think 6400 ISO, and it looks amazingly good. And now we know why, because it is equivalent at 6400 ISO. If we do the math, what is that equivalent to on the SL2?
At 6400 on the SL2S is, let's see, 2500.
No,
the other way around.
No,
Sorry. Yeah.
almost like 1250.
Yeah, I'm thinking the other way.
Like 16 between 1000 and 1600.
Yeah.
12.5. I don't want to confuse and saying 12,500, but 1,250 ISO on the SL2 is like 6,400 on the SL2S. That's a big difference. So in a perfect world, I would take both, because I could shoot my daytime long exposures and things on the SL2, and then I could use the SL2S for nighttime photography. But if you were going to just go with the SL2S, it does have, as pointed out in the comments, a multi-shot mode, just like the SL2 does. But instead of 187 megapixels, you get 96, which again is, an insane. 100 megapixel image is an insane
But
quality.
only on a static subject. Let's be
Correct.
clear.
On a tripod.
Yeah, on a tripod. And not with a TL lens. It has to be a full frame lens. First of all, this is not coffee. This is just water. It just happens to be in a coffee mug. I definitely do not need any caffeine. George commenting, and then Kirsten texting me. I'm in a permanent state of being wired. Rest assured, no caffeine is required. So
Okay.
I think the low light performance of the SL2S isn't just about, I'm going to shoot at 1.4 at dusk at 50,000. It's also about the opportunity to expand your creative control when you're shooting handheld. So for example, let's say you and I are out and it's South Beach and it's sunset. We've got plenty of light. We can shoot at ISO 400, f2, f1.4, and get perfectly fast shutter speeds for shooting street. But my logic is, what if our creative objectives require shooting at f8? What if we're trying to get two people both in focus or a street sign or whatever? Well, with the SL2, I would be hesitant to do that, because you're either gonna have to jack up the ISO to a level that I'm not comfortable with, or shoot at a shutter speed so slow that people that are might be blurry.
Yeah. In-body image stabilization isn't going to fix your subjects moving.
Exactly. So the SL2S, because it has such dramatically better low light performance, gives you that additional creative control to say, well, I need to be at f8. I can be at f8 because I can bump my ISO by those extra 2 stops or 3 stops and not compromise the quality that I want and expect and get the shot that I want. So it's not just about wide open 50,000 dark.
Right.
It's also just about expanding your creative control as the light changes.
And I think that is exactly what I've seen the advantages of the M10 monochrome, and more recently the Q2 monochrome. Having that headroom allows me, because on the Q2 monochrome, when I went out and did test shots at night, I wasn't afraid to go to 5.6 or f8 to get that look if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I wasn't afraid, even during the day, to throw a red filter on and shoot at f8 handheld, because I'm losing 2.5 stops of light with my red filter. So what?
Yeah,
it
doesn't matter.
Because it didn't matter, and shooting 1600 in the middle of the day, so what? It's perfectly clean. We need to kind of recalibrate as photographers, because, man, when we started, we're shooting film.
Yeah.
And you would never, oh my
400
God,
ISO was the max.
that's it.
That was it.
Yeah. And now
For color, at least.
we have these tools that are just so far beyond where I could have ever imagined things just 10 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not constantly shooting at ISO 50,000 or 25,000. I don't live in that range. But what I want is less things technically impeding my creativity. And each evolution of camera and lens that Leica comes out with, that we talk about and geek out about and say why it's better than the thing before it, it's not just that it's new and that it's fancy and that it's because it's offering new creative possibilities without limiting you from a technical standpoint. And that, to me, is what the monochrome does, and we've talked about this. It's what the M10R does, and it's what the SL2S does. I don't think the SL2 is harmed.
No.
Because if you want LRA resolution, the SL2 is still better.
Yes.
The detail from sub 800 ISO files on the SL2 still considerably better than the SL2S.
Yes.
Because it's
of course
20 more megapixels.
Yes.
If you want to use TL lenses like I do all the time, I'm not going to do it on the SL2S.
No.
Because I don't want a 10 megapixel file.
Right.
I'm very comfortable with 20 megs, obviously, because I'm using 24 on the S. So, right tool for the right task.
And
Yes.
I like the and.
And.
Okay. So Tom has a techie question here, which is, do you think the BSI sensor tech will migrate into all Leica bodies in time, or does it have limitations compared to the dual base ISO tech of the M10R, M10 monochrome, etc.? I don't know. I'm going to leave that to the Leica engineers because so far they have been doing a cracking job here at rolling out just amazing camera after amazing camera. It's not even worth me speculating at this point because the M10R is already fantastic.
Yeah.
The M10 monochrome is beyond fantastic for low light. The Q2 monochrome, again, awesome performance. The SL2, still, like, I'm not kicking my SL2 to the curb
Yeah.
because the SL2S.
I'm going to be using both, and so is David.
I love the idea. And,
Yeah.
and you think, like, oh, the SL2, it's so big. This, if I just took as an extra body, this takes up less space, or let's say the same amount of space in my camera bag as one of the Summicron SL lenses. It takes up less space than a zoom lens. Okay, this dimension, because of kind of how flat it is, it just slots right into into my backpack. And not only that, if I'm going, out in the middle of nowhere in Greenland or northern Norway, like if something bad happens to my camera, which thankfully it hasn't, I have a backup body that's perfectly serviceable and easily gets me through the trip, but also gives me added flexibility. And let's say that, I want to go out in Oslo and do some night photography. I'll just grab the SL2S, and these are kind of, I think they just complement each other really well, where in the past, maybe I would have taken an M camera with me. But here I can share the same lens mount. And I think having both cameras while traveling is going to be, I think that's going to be my new normal.
And I know some people are continuing or curious about comparisons against M10 monochrome and Q2 monochrome. It's not a comparison I spent a lot of time on because those tools are so different. I do think the SL2S does have less noise than the Q2 monochrome does by a small degree, but when you convert it to black and white, like I said about the M10 mono, it changes things as well. So they're in two different ballparks for me. I think a Q2 monochrome and an SL2S is the ultimate in low light combination. You have an SL2S with the 50, or an SL2 either actually, with a 50 Apo SL, Q2 monochrome with your 28, you can pretty much do anything. Although the more I think about it, the more I'd say no, I'd actually go with a Q2 monochrome and an SL2, or a Q2 and an SL2S. Because the Q2 monochrome is the better high ISO, the SL2 is better detail, and I like color.
Wow.
I could do this all day. But I some tools or some cameras like it comes out with, I say, okay, I'm going to compare this against everything. Yeah. I think M10R was a good example of that. I wanted to know how the M10R slotted against everything.
I even did a whole testing suite.
SL2S to me, okay, I compare it against the color baselines, M10R, SL, SL2. I wasn't spending a lot of time thinking about monochrome because the monochrome cameras are more than just about high ISO performance. They're about detail, dynamic range, shadow recoverability, and an incredibly malleable file that if you convert a color file to black and white, it's never as flexible as that. So it's kind of a non-answer, and I think I'll have more insight as David and I both spend more time with the S. But, if you really want to know, I'll do more testing, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. We barely, I feel like we have to do another episode on the SL2S. We're not, but I feel like we almost have to because it's 9:20 and there are still so many more questions.
We have some people asking about M lenses on the SL2S and if there's any difference with the SL2 or...
Well, you know what? I think we've talked a lot. Let's break this up. I have I have a couple 1 minute short little video clips just to little sizzle. You can enjoy some video of South Florida that I shot with the SL2S. Just to give a little tech background before we show that, this was all shot in log, of course. Primarily, I think, mostly with the 24-90 and the 35 Summicron over there, the SL lens, and a little bit with the 90-280. But shot just all handheld or on a tripod. I didn't have the wherewithal to get set up with the gimbal and all that.
Not yet.
And I shot it to a somewhere over there, a Ninja 5 Atomos recorder. So it was all sent out over HDMI, 10-bit 422 ProRes. And then again, all I did was brought it into Premiere, applied the classic LUT. The natural LUT was not quite as vibrant for my taste, so I went with the classic. And mainly, I was just able to, pull my exposure a little bit, highlight shadows, and that's basically it. I didn't do any kind of crazy, adjustments or really, multi-node toning.
Did you show the video already?
Yeah. So let's show the video.
Talk about this all night.
Let's show I've got like a bird one of different tropical birds here. So let's. That's
we
not
saw
it.
that already. He's working on it. We haven't done this before, so we're trying. And go.
Any data. Go.
And go.
I think you guys just wanted to see the color bar test, right?
Yeah, that's the most exciting part.
Yeah, it was a different scene. Remember we set up for the birds. There we go.
I think. This looks black. This is really, really low light right here. I think you left the lens cap on for this test.
Here, you play that?
Looking great. Looking great. We're consummate professionals.
If you click on the video file, maybe, and hit play. Yes, no, maybe so. We're trying.
Hopefully nobody tunes in right now and goes, what is going on Red Dot Forum Camera Talk today?
Yeah. Let's come back to us real quick and we'll...
You want to tinker over there, David? We got to figure it out?
I don't know. You want to talk for a little bit?
I can always talk. I can always talk about
Oh, no.
the Traffic Red
Oh, my gosh.
Harry and Sally bag, which if you purchase now for the low price of whatever this bag costs, you will get a handwritten limerick by Leica Star Miami Poet Laureate Josh Lehrer. So supplies are limited.
Okay, you're crazy. All right. Excuse me, folks, while I'm going to go queue up this video.
Don't step on the dog, please. He's a delicate flower. Now I have the show all to myself, so I can finally talk about cars and watches and kind of these stupid cameras. So what's everybody wearing on their wrists? Put it in the comments so I can know who I want to hang out with. So David shot a couple of clips that are going to demonstrate just overall image quality as well as high ISO performance, sort of real world stuff versus the color checker shots, which are demonstrative but not very interesting. So this is a new technological approach in terms of getting it integrated into our streaming, which is why it requires a little bit of tinkering. But let me see if there's any burning questions in the RDF radio show. Yeah, so we should do a podcast. I'm telling you. Or I guess you could just play this in your car. Multibursts. The new Red Oyster Perpetual. Yes, for sure. That would go very well. With the Traffic Red, Harry and Sally. All supplies last. I hope the people who got the haiku for the green bag actually read it, because I spent a lot of time on it. Questions. Ooh, there we go. Firmware updates, yeah. I think it was pretty bold of Leica to come right out and say, here's what we're going to do in future firmware. If you think about it, have they ever done that before? They did it with the SL2 promising the multi-shot. Before that, it was always quite opaque as to what their plans were for future firmware. I mean, we got electronic shutter functionality in the SL kind of out of nowhere, which was pretty cool. So I'm excited to see what Leica does. If you look at David's launch article on Red Dot Forum for the SL2-S, he did list what Leica's plans are. So you can have a kind of an idea, mostly video centric. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure, the camera's only a week old. We're going to see a lot of additional functionality added as they improve firmware. So that aside, make sure if you own currently an SL2 or an SL2S that you update your lens firmware, because it's what Leica usually does is they have lens firmware and they say, okay, we have this new feature, let's say, but it also tends to do bug fixes and smooth out operation kind of behind the scenes. So it's not in Leica's official release, but my guess is there's also just performance and stability improvements for the lenses as well. So every lens but the 1635 and the 51.4 can use this new firmware. So we will have a Red Dot Forum article about it. But if you want to do that before, just go to Leica's website go to the downloads page. It's like support, somewhere on their site, support downloads. Navigate to the SL2 or the SL2-S. It's the same file for both. There's not an S specific firmware for the lenses. So update, it's basically mount the lens, fully charged battery, of course, camera information, lens firmware, and just update all your lenses on the SL2 or the SL2-S just to take advantage of this new functionality. It's pretty cool, especially if you manually focus a lot, which I like to do just for fun. I got another question, I think, here.
Yeah, let me...
1976 GMT root beer, sweet. Send me a picture. Don't just, unless you did.
All right,
I've opened Pandora's box. You didn't send me a picture, Larry. Come on, you're killing me right now.
All right, so
How's
we're
it
gonna
going,
try to
everybody?
let's try to queue up this video. Let's see.
Okay. Hey.
Birds.
All right, Dave, are you gonna?
Yeah, I'm making my way back
Are you
here.
gonna Attenborough this for us or what?
No. The lovely birds.
Yeah.
are- yeah.
Here's what kind of birds are these? Some kind of
I don't know. I think they're ducks.
some kind
Okay.
of rare woodland puffin. I don't know.
But yeah, I wanted to give you guys an idea of, obviously that's not birds, that's a little leaf with an ant crawling on it. But the look of these files is just, amazing. I love the detail, the color rendition.
Where did you go for this? Where was the parrot?
Around.
Around? You just got parrots and cages?
Around.
I want to go to these places. Look at them birds.
Yep.
Is there audio or no?
No, just me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this
I
is
didn't
just
think
on a quick loop. But something I want to point out on these bird ones is they're under dappled light in, harsh Florida sun. And what's incredible is those white feathers are still being full detail being held. And I have tons of detail in the shadows. So I'm just going to let it play just one more time, and then we're going to go back through this. And then we can bring up the sunset video.
Let's do the next one. I'm bored of this one. Give me more. What do we got? This is beautiful, though. I love that shot where you can see the bokeh just fall right off. Hey, that bird had one of your carabiners, I think.
Yeah.
From the last episode. He must have been watching the live stream.
He's looking at you.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is it. So let's switch over, and then we've got
I love this.
So we've got some nice sunset action here. And I apologize. I didn't go out recording audio. I'm really just looking to do.
Peter says those are ducks.
Now something
Hello.
else. So this is actually really dark. That's 3200 ISO of these fishing people here. So is this. So all these shots, because there's just no light, and you can see the birds are flying across the horizon there. So I've got a decent shutter speed. I think that one even might be 6400 ISO. Just to give you an idea of that real world low light performance of still having that fantastic color. And having the dynamic range to basically shoot into a sunset, which is...
This shot, I like this shot.
Yeah, and the color is just phenomenal.
I don't know how well this comes across on YouTube, but on our big monitor here, it's beautiful. We gotta sell a sizzle.
Yeah. Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Whoops. The audio's not very good. Sorry, guys.
I think I closed the camera. Imagine if you don't have enough to do. I can't wait to see what you do with this game. All right. Put more time into the video shooting because it's pretty sweet. Jose's just doing a quick battery.
Sorry about the audio there, guys.
See, once we get SL2Ss in the studio, we're not going to have to do battery swaps anymore. Because the battery life is so much better. Did we talk about that already? We did, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we're seeing like 500 shots or something ridiculous like that.
All right. So
Hey, we're back.
that is us. All right. So listen. Sorry about the weird. Actually, I thought I dropped the audio in those clips because it's just a mangled, awful mess of Florida beachgoers. Not exactly very naturey. So if that was a real thing, put it to music or something like that. But I did actually want to just talk over to comment, but scrap that idea.
Our soothing voices don't augment the relaxing atmosphere of the Florida beaches?
I don't know.
I think so, personally. Whatever. What do we got?
The Twilight. Yes.
I
Okay.
don't know yet, just to answer some questions. I don't know how much better, if at all, the SL2S's performance will be with M lenses versus the SL2. There's a few M lenses that I've never really loved on the SL2, like the 21 Summilux comes to mind. It's on my list for sure to try that on the SL2S, just to see if the BSI tech makes that better. I can't say with definitiveness. What I can say, as I already mentioned, is the precise focusing ability with M lenses and low light is considerably better in the EVF on the SL2S than it is on the SL2.
Yes.
So that's one empirical advantage of M lenses on the SL2S versus the SL2. In terms of performance, remains to be seen. Obviously, we'll be back on the air next year, and we cover a lot of stuff, and I can address this.
I may even do the video on video episode.
We are eventually going to do a live stream about video, as well as a bunch of the other stuff people have asked us about. It's just, these shows take a lot of work, so
Yeah.
we will do it. We have a lot of plans for 2021.
I do want to answer. Steven asks, I assume Classic is 709. For those not video people, REC 709 is sort of, it's really close to sRGB. It's what you're watching right now. What you're watching right now is REC 709. That is the standard YouTube broadcast. It's what you watch when you watch television. Standard like HD television through a cable box is REC 709. It's a agreed upon standard color space, like sRGB for web. So yes, I am using the REC 709 Classic LUT from Leica. They are downloadable from the support area.
And they're free?
And they are completely free.
Yeah.
But for each one, there's a Classic and a Natural. And there is a REC 709 version, which is what you're watching, what you watched, as well as a REC 2020. REC 2020 is what's known, what's used for HDR. So if you have certified HDR content, that is shot in REC or delivered in REC 2020. So that's a wide gamut space. But if I applied that LUT, it would look really flat and washed out for YouTube display. So for everything you see on YouTube, it's REC 709. Just, there you go.
Okay. Someone asked about the differences in auto ISO. There's not going to be any difference in auto ISO functionality on the two cameras between the SL2S and the SL2.
No.
The real difference is the threshold, the maximum ISO. I probably wouldn't go above 12.5 at the most on the SL2, whereas I have no problem with 25,000 or 50,000 as the maximum on the SL2S. Again, depending on a lot of variables, but auto ISO functionality is going to be the same. I'm just more comfortable shooting at 1 or 2 or even almost 3 stops higher on the SL2S than I am on the SL2. That's the real difference there.
Yeah.
But then generally, in those extreme lighting situations where it requires an ISO that high, I'm going to take off auto ISO and go to a manual setting because it's starting to get, our creative control needs to get more involved. Are LUTs available for the SL2?
Jeff wants to know, are LUTs available for the SL2? I would try using the same ones. See how that works for you, because the cameras have a very similar rendering, and they're both shooting L-Log, so 10-bit L-Log. So I would recommend try the LUTs. I think that I didn't get a chance to test that today, but I was a little busy trying to just like cut together some pictures of birds and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's it. We also should discuss something that's different on the SL2S when you talk about video features. It came up earlier in a question about what makes this camera better for video apart from the sensor. And there's a kind of a feature set. You'll notice that I used the way I was used to, which is shooting with my Atomos monitor right here, using an HDMI cable and recording to that. Because there's a lot of limitations in a typical hybrid photo video camera. Usually you have a runtime limitation of 29 minutes. If you shoot in log, everything on the screen looks flat and washed out, and you can't really gauge exposure or color or anything like that because it just looks like a gray, pasty mess. You also don't have exposure tools like a waveform monitor and the ability to actually view LUTs on that log footage. But you do on the SL2S. So the SL2S kind of ups the game in terms of reasons that you might want to use an external monitor like an Atomos. You can now utilize that functionality in the camera right on the screen. So sure, using a 5 or 7-inch monitor is still going to be a much bigger view than a 3.2-inch screen, and you can position it wherever you want. So I might still go that way, but having that flexibility to throw this on a gimbal or do a run and gun setup and not sacrifice those features those pro features that I want to use for video is really cool. So one of those, I'll just show quickly, is the fact that you can, first of all, remember I was going to show you guys how to switch into video mode. Right there. You can either swipe the whole screen. There, we're in video. Okay.
We get a close up? No, not yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were. Okay, there we go.
There, move it forward.
Yep. So I swiped.
Nope.
Actually, there.
Back. There you
Yeah.
go.
I swiped it into video mode, so you can see just swiping the screen. I'm in photo, and now I'm in video. It's really easy. Or you can just tap on the photo and video at the top of the page. Now what I'm going to do is just go in the menu to the LUTs, which is very cool. So we go into L-Log. Let's see. Okay. So this is a little buried in here. I'll walk you guys through it. Okay. So right there, we can see we're in the video settings menu. Okay. And I'm going to go into video gamma, and we're going to go down to L-Log. Actually, before we do that, we're going to go into settings. And in settings, if I go to L-Log, you can see here LUT profile off. But what's pretty cool is I can go, whoop, I'm going backwards. Let's try that again. Okay, L-Log. We go to LUT profile, and here I can say classic. So when I'm shooting in, I'll go back now. And when I'm shooting in log, and you may or may not see this. Well, yeah, that is a great exposure.
There you go.
So that's my shirt. And it kind of looks the same as what you're seeing on regular video here, right? See if I can brighten that up. There we go. Now, actually, let me, a second. Okay, so this should be identical. So this is 800 ISO. This is pretty much what we're normally shooting at. Now, that all looks normal. There's me. I'm going to just quickly reset that setting. So video settings, I'm going to go into the gamma settings, and I'm going to turn off that profile. Okay, and now this is what you would normally see, which is kind of flat. You'll notice that's not a very good skin tone. It's very washed out. So that's one of the reasons when we're using the Atomos recorder, I can load a LUT onto the screen, so I'm recording flat, kind of like raw, but I'm previewing it what it's going to look like. And that's what the viewing LUTs are for in the camera. So you can set it to classic or natural right there, but it's still recording that flatter, higher dynamic range image in the camera, which is great because it means you can preview your exposure, dial it in, you can get your white balance set, where it really minimizes your post-production work, which is great. That's on the current version as it stands right now with shipping. What's coming out in, 2 months-ish? Within the next two to 3 months? Soon?
Yes.
Early 2021. You will actually be able to load your own custom LUTs onto an SD card, put them in the camera, and view those, which is really cool because maybe you don't want just a neutral, normal-looking thing. You want to have a really stylized, crazy blue, teal, whatever look to it. Or you want to shoot day for night. You want to have a nighttime LUT that's really blue and dark. Well, you can load that in the camera, and everything you're shooting, even if it's handheld, run and gun, or in a small gimbal, allows you to see exactly what you're going to get in camera. And this is obviously a lot smaller than carrying a lot of other stuff on a rig. So that is really, really neat. And having the waveform functionality is also coming at that time, as well as color bars, tally mode. There's a whole slew of features as well to make internal recording go longer. Not just H.264, which is the encoding that's in both these cameras now, but H.265 HEVC recording. So half the file size, exactly the same quality. which is usually very processor intensive to get that kind of compression. So clearly there's a lot of horsepower under the hood here.
Yes, yes.
And they're really going to be leveraging those things. And that's just the first iteration. How many features and how many firmware additions did we have, let's say, on the first generation SL?
A lot. I mean, I think the thing people tend to forget over time in the 4 or 5 year life cycle that Leica has for their major products, how much they improve things through firmware. The SL2, it feels like we talk about it all the time. It's only a year old. So we're only 20, 25% of its lifespan. We've got a long way to go. And the SL2-S just kind of reinvigorates that. So I'm pretty excited to see what comes next. I do want to say, I don't know if the autofocus on the SL2-S is different, faster, better. I haven't really tested it enough yet. My main test was low light performance. I don't think it's any different, but at least it's not noticeably different in my testing.
Well, they are saying that next firmware as well is going to bring a brand new algorithm for face and body intelligent autofocus detection.
So yeah, I'm not going to say it's not like I picked up the SL2-S and was like, whoa, the focus is way faster.
Feels very similar.
It feels similar. And I felt that way about the EVF. I could notice right away that it was better. I did not feel that way about the autofocus. I don't really have complaints about the SL2's autofocus, but I certainly will take better. Better is always better. What do we got? Ooh, Ignacio?
Can you trade in your SL Type 601 to the SL2S?
Of course you can. Of course. Yeah. And you should. Next question.
We shouldn't gloss over that. I think that for a lot of people who had an SL601 and say, the camera's fast, it's high quality, I don't need more than 24 megapixels. I'd love some of those features that are on the SL2, like the embodied image stabilization, especially. That's usually the number one feature. The new menu interface that kind of works with everything else, the new EVF. But I don't want to deal with larger files.
Yeah, or I don't need larger files.
I don't need them. I don't want to deal with them. And I think that's also where the SL2S really slots in nicely because it's a perfect upgrade path from the 601 to the SL2S, basically boosting image quality, boosting usable features, and just bringing a lot of improvements. And it still costs $1,100 less.
Right, so you take the $1,100 you save on the difference and you put it towards another lens.
Perfect.
That's what I do. Or like 5 extra batteries.
Well, the battery life is also better on the SL2S.
So.
It's about 50% better battery life than the SL2 because less pixels.
There you go.
That may not be the reason.
Now I feel bad for Jose because he hasn't been able to ask us any questions this whole time because we've been so greedy about reading the comments.
Sorry.
But of course, we have tons of questions that people submitted ahead of time, which I apologize. We're definitely not going to get to everyone. But Jose, can you please pick 1 or 2 questions at least to ask us on the list?
Sure. Does the CL graduate to the SL2S make sense? Graduating from the CL to the SL2S?
Yeah, I think if you're looking for full frame for the speed and performance and the stabilization, I think the CL to the SL2 or the SL2S makes a lot of sense. The big difference there is
size.
Well, what I mean is if you're going to go from a CL to an SL2S, you're going to want to trade in or sell your CL lenses as well because they're not terribly viable on the SL2S at 10 megs. If you're going from a CL to an SL2, I would keep some or all of your lenses because they're very viable on the SL2 at 20 megs. So that's really the biggest difference in terms of like your transition. I think if you are planning on getting some of the SL primes, which are not that much bigger than the CL primes, at least the bigger ones.
But just keep this in mind.
Yeah, there's a big size difference. Of course, this is an extreme example, but the SL2S with the prime lens will be smaller than that. Just show them on this same body. Oh, I want to address something else. I believe in Leica's specs, the SL2S weighs a little bit more than the SL2, which I was very confused by. So I actually put them on a scale today, and they are exactly the same weight to the gram.
Yeah, that is confusing.
Very weird. I don't know why. I'm going to fix our website for sure this week. They're exactly the same weight, same body, same dimensions. If anything, like the micrograms of extra paint that's missing from the SL2S is a slight advantage there.
I was going to say the pixels weigh less.
Oh, that's something I would say, isn't it? Okay.
All right.
I'm getting off track.
I have another
Jose.
one. Yeah. Question from Victor. I am happy with my SL601 and SL lenses, but want to add a second body. I photograph cars, aircraft, nature, street portrait, and a little video. I yearn to produce better black and white images. How do I decide?
Well, if you've got a 601 and you have lenses for it, you're probably going to want to switch to an SL2 or an SL2S just to maintain that lens line and also the performance. If you're shooting cars or planes, things that are moving, you want the speed and performance of the SL2 or the SL2S. You can make really good black and white conversions from that. I don't know. I maybe would say get an SL2S and then take the rest of the money you've saved towards a Q2 monochrome. And then you can kind of do both. I guess that's what I would say.
Or use 246 monochrome.
Yeah.
I mean, there's options.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got a few generations of M monochrome cameras, but then of course the lenses. I mean, you could use M lenses on your SL2, but
Yeah. Next question.
it's complicated.
Which camera do you recommend for sunrise and sunset landscape photos? SL601, SL2, or SL2S?
I think they're all going to perform similarly.
I've used all those for
Yeah,
those things.
I think there's so much dynamic range in that scene, so much more than the camera can capture in one shot that you're going to use filters or HDR anyway,
or both.
or both.
Yeah.
So any of those, whatever you have is going to work. Obviously, the SL2 or the S2S are superior in quality and performance to the SL. I mean, the SL2 is probably the best because it's the most resolution. So traditionally you print big, although I can print pretty darn big from an SL2S. So yeah, it's kind of a win-win-win, really. If you have all three, I would just, I don't know, I'd set them all up on a tripod and I don't know. That's more of a question of technique and less about camera choice, I think.
Watch our landscape episode.
We did that, didn't we? Do a whole episode on landscape photography. We did 2 episodes on landscape photography.
We do, part 1 and part 2.
I feel like so long ago.
It was like a month ago.
Well, there you go. What else we got, Jose?
On the SL2S, does it still give you the option of turning off long exposure noise reduction?
Yes.
Okay, next.
All right. What about M lenses on the SL2S?
So
Sure.
We talked about it, I think, a little bit, so I probably won't repeat myself, but more testing needed to know if they are better than on the SL2. I don't know yet. I don't think so. I think Leica's designing these sensors, knowing what's going to happen, but aside from the EVF performance, which I have talked about.
Right. Unlike other mirrorless cameras not from Leica, the Leica sensors are always designed with M lenses in mind, that they will perform all the way down. You know, here we have a 21,
Yeah.
which performs extremely well on, certainly on the first generation SL, the SL2, and I am going to naturally assume the SL2S.
Yeah.
We have not, really put that to the test because we have had limited time and wanted to actually produce something to show you guys.
But we will.
But yeah, it works great.
tuned.
It works great.
Next
and,
question.
and like Josh said, the focusing experience is really, really nice.
Yes. Next.
All right. Does the 1 second maximum exposure time in multi-shot high resolution mode in SO2 hold for SO2S as well?
I don't know. Let's see.
Let's find out. That's why I like having the camera right here. Just try it.
I'm actually not sure because I have not tried that yet.
Make sure you go to BSI-CMOS.
Yeah, for sure.
Do that first.
You want to explain that for a second?
Oh, sure. So the lower the ISO you go, the longer the shutter speed you have at the long end.
And actually, on the SL2S, that's 30 minutes now,
Sweet.
which is insane.
So go to base ISO, right?
Yep.
Or 100, whatever. And then we'll go to multi-shot.
Mhm.
Will it work with an M lens? I don't even know.
Yes.
Okay.
It
It's
does.
full frame, yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. So let's go to manual exposure mode here. Yes, vibration detected. It's very sensitive.
I'm going to take my arm off the table so we're not...
Okay. 1 second. Interesting.
That's the maximum? Well, the reason that is because that's the longest shutter speed you get from the electronic shutter. That's why. That's an electronic shutter limitation. That's not a camera specific limitation.
Right. So yes, it is confirmed. You can only go to 1 second for your multi-shot images, which also might be an interesting plus for the SL2S as I'm thinking about it, because that means, let me see before I say one way or the other, but let's say I can go and raise that ISO to 1600. Yes, I could still shoot 1 second at 1600 ISO. And the quality I'm going to get at 1600 ISO is going to be very comparable to the SL2 at 200 ISO.
320.
320. Who's counting math?
Yeah.
But that means that I can still get the exposure I want. I can still, like Josh was saying earlier, that gives me the freedom to stop down to f8 or f11 and still in a kind of twilight scenario, be able to get a multi-shot properly exposed rather than severely underexposed.
And the reality is, past 1 second, not much is static anymore.
Yeah.
So then it
around.
becomes a
Clouds.
Yeah,
and
that becomes
whatever,
problematic. Except for maybe architecture, it's the only exception.
You know, buildings might move, earthquakes.
Okay, that's true. Very limited use case scenario.
I'll answer this. Chuck wants to know, did I use an ND filter of any kind on my outdoor video? No, I actually did not. I cheated, and I just used higher shutter speeds,
There you go.
which I know that's kind of like a no-no.
Did anyway.
A lot of people like to keep the shutter speed low for video to keep that whole 180-degree shutter angle traditional. No, I shot fast, and I think the footage looks really smooth. So there.
Yeah. I know there's a couple questions about telephoto lenses. We have talked about that quite a bit. The longest lens you can get is the 9280. There are R lens options, and who
You're looking
knows?
at that. Yeah.
You'll be curious to see what else pops up in the L-mount Alliance. I know Sigma has a 100-400 I've heard good things about. I have not used personally. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
All right, Jose, what else?
Yes.
Lingering stuff.
Quick question here. When are they extending their prime lens line?
They even said on their little shindig here about the SL2-S that those are coming in 2021.
So that would be the 21, 24, and 28 Supercron SL, which they have teased. They have said they're going to do.
They look just like this.
Hopefully this coming year, but we don't know for sure.
We actually have them right here.
no,
We don't have them.
So hopefully next year, which is in 2 weeks, so less than 2 weeks, which is crazy.
Next year comes quickly. So yeah, so we'll have 21, 24, 28, 35, 50, 75, and 90, all f2, all in the 67 millimeter dimension, which is
Sick.
really cool. So stay
I'm
tuned for
excited.
that.
I'm excited.
I'm sure we'll do a special episode for that.
I hope so. I mean, certainly if we get all three at once, you can expect an SL Summicron Prime lens. But we have other ideas as well. You know, lots of ideas for 2021 coming
Yes,
up.
we do.
And of course, we always welcome suggestions. So if somebody has an idea
yes.
that they're just dying to see us do, tell us.
Drop it in the
We
comments.
do listen, and we do try to, work that kind of stuff into what we do. So, yes, I think we're getting to the end, almost to the end here, but Jose has more questions for us, I'm sure.
Does the SO2 and SO2S support anamorphic lenses?
Not internally. I mean, there's no squeeze de-squeeze mode on the SL2S currently, but given the fact that they're aiming so far into the video features, I would not be surprised to see that kind of thing in the future. You probably can do it on an Atomos recorder. You can set a manual de-squeeze, so you could shoot anamorphic in camera with an anamorphic lens at 16:9 in camera, and then de-squeeze it to like super crazy, CinemaScope wide on your Atomos recorder.
There you go.
So yeah, kinda.
But not really.
Well, kinda.
Next question.
Okay. Will the Atomos Ninja 5 control recording for either recording internally in the SO2S and or SSD on board the Ninja 5?
Well, can you do? No. Wait. Will the Ninja control the camera?
Internally, recording internally, yes. The Ninja.
So, I mean, when I record on a Ninja, what I do is, or any recording device, is the camera actually is just set to live view, and it's just outputting a signal. I never actually hit record on the camera. I hit record on the recording monitor, and that is what records to the SSD on the monitor itself, on the Ninja. The camera never changes what it's doing. It's just basically live viewing, sending that output without what's called a clean output. So there's no overlays, there's no information, and it's doing it in full 10-bit and in log if you set that to the monitor. And then the monitor is just grabbing that video signal and encoding it however you choose, be it ProRes or H.264 or DNX XR, whatever. So I don't quite understand the question because I that's how you do things now.
That's an email David question if it's something. Whoever asked that,
Leave a comment in the video.
comment, yeah, we're gonna do a whole video
A video about video.
next year
About video?
for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like we've answered a lot of the questions. I haven't really seen much come up in the chat unless you
Nothing in the chat, but I Jose, is there any other?
anything crazy because it's
Let's
almost
see.
10. So.
I can pull that up too. here.
Okay.
We'll take a look.
Still have a few, yeah.
nuts here.
Is there a way to use a V-mount battery with the SL2?
Yes, kind of. So for those people that don't know, a V-mount battery, if you imagine like the battery in this camera is about that big, right? And it lasts okay, but on a lot of professional productions, they use something called a V-mount battery, which is this massively large, basically like bigger than what's in your laptop battery. And it can power a full rig for, hours and hours and hours. So the answer is kind of. So I'm going to make believe for a second that this is, did I grab the right one? Yes, I did. No, I didn't. It's okay. We're going to pretend. So this is a battery pack. When we covered this in our landscape episode, as well as I think our just travel photography episode. If we just magically pretend that this is USB Type-C, the camera does have a USB-C input, and you can supply power that way, and it would just plug in here. Now, that's one way to stay charged up. Obviously, this is nowhere near the capacity of a V-mount battery. But what you can do is get a breakout plate for the V-mount battery, which you typically have to put it on anyway. And instead of DTAP or something like that, a lot of them have a USB power output. And in that case, all you would need is a USB-A to a USB-C, and you can use the V-mount to power your camera.
A little bit of MacGyvering there.
I mean, you should see these rigs. I mean, everything's MacGyver.
I forgot to talk about another cool new thing, by the way, which is slightly less obnoxious.
Another bag?
Is not a bag.
Is it a beanie?
What I don't want to talk about at all is the Traffic Red limited edition Harry and Sally Oberworth bag, one of only 20 ever being made. What I do want to briefly talk about doesn't really apply to us too much since we live in Florida. The new addition to the Red Dot Wear line, the Red Dot Wear beanie, which has this cool M6 patch on it. And if you live in
Let's get a
climates,
close-up of that.
I don't think we have the close-up right now. I think our close-up is dead. Oh, no, wait,
No,
do we?
close-up's right there.
Is it working now, Jose? I don't know. He's wagging his finger. Just say it. It's okay. We feel for you.
It is not working.
The new Red Dot Wear M6 patch beanie, like it's a leather patch. This thing is awesome. It's super soft. So if you live in the colder climates, which is not the studio, I'm modeling it for everyone here. Kirsten is definitely laughing.
Well, you got to put the patch in the front.
What?
Jeff.
I did that, did I?
Come on,
No,
Josh.
it was a little off. There you go.
I had to get it up like this.
There you go.
There you go.
You don't wear it like that. That's how an elf wears a hat. There you go.
This is this is the stylish. I'm trying to get it. So anyway, if you're looking for like a cool gift or just something fun for yourself,
Looking sharp, man. Looking sharp.
I'm messing up my hair. This is the new Red Dot Wear M6 beanie. So
I like it.
it's a little bit cheaper than having to buy this Oberworth bag, although there's more of these out there, so it's not as rare.
No, but
it is cool.
But it is cool.
It is
But
cool. So just search the website for a beanie. I think it's on the homepage.
I'm a big believer in the beanie.
I just got to throw it out there because this is that time of year, you know.
It's the time for beanies.
Except here where it's 85 degrees out every day, but you know.
I think it might actually be a brisk 65 right now.
That is beanie weather. Now that I've worn this one, I'm going to own it. So
I think you just need to take it with you.
I think I'm going to wear this tomorrow morning if I walk the dog.
On our morning
I think
walks.
that's probably as much as we need to cover about one camera. Obviously, this is all new. David and I have just started to scratch the surface of what this camera can do. We will certainly be doing Red Dot Forum content on the blog, talking about this further. If you know, we talk about the SL2 all the time. We're going to be integrating this into our workflow for sure. So keep an eye on this space and reddotforum.com to see how the SL2 continues to integrate itself into our workflow, both personally and for work. But if there's more questions about what the SL2S can do, please leave a comment because we are going to read it. And I guess just to rehash, as of today, which is December 19th, Leica has just started to roll out bodies. Obviously, every dealer, us included, is going to have a waiting list. Who knows when they'll be in stock? I'm just glad that Leica...
There's a link in the comments down below,
Yeah.
or in the video description down below, where you can click to place a pre-order for the SL2S.
Yeah.
I think this one's going to be a little less of a huge weight. I think
Yeah.
Leica is rolling these out in greater numbers, so probably within the next.
I think a couple months. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it's going to be crazy. I think, I mean, again, they've started delivering. So
Right.
if you're just the sooner you get on the list, the better. The sooner you're going to get a camera. So yeah, I'm optimistic about that. Obviously, we're getting into the holidays, so there's some closures, but that's only a week or two, and then we're
Then we're
bounce
back in
right
business.
bounce right back to normal.
Yeah. Very, very exciting.
Yeah, this is awesome. So we've had a very productive year for Leica.
Wow.
I mean, I have lost track. M10R, M10 monochrome, SL2S, Q2 monochrome, limited editions. Whew, it's been.
SL2S.
I said that.
Say it
I just
again.
said out
Say
of
it
order.
again.
I
Say
said
it
out of
again.
order.
Yeah.
So it's been great, and we have. I feel like really. What's what I'm trying to say here? It's been a new adventure for us to do these live streams.
Sure.
And we've had a ton of great feedback from everyone, and we really appreciate it. Just to quickly, before David sort of signs us off, we are back next year. Let me look at the date so I know.
The end of January.
January. I know, Julie, you texted me, and then I totally forgot.
Doing some housekeeping here.
January 23rd. January 23rd, 2021. We are back on the air. We're taking a bit of a hiatus. Our topic is, I believe, going to be.
Don't ruin it.
No, I can tell him.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, like that,
Tell him.
Well, it's, I think it's good.
Go
So
ahead.
we covered the history of analog M. Now we're going to cover the history of digital M.
Because it's a special year.
It's 15 years of M
Yes,
digital.
it is. Yes, it is.
M8
15 years.
M8 came out in 2006,
It did.
and now it'll be 2021. So we're going to do 15 years of digital M history. We're going to have a lot of cool special editions, some super rare stuff.
The entire anthology.
We're going to talk about what makes all these digital M's special and what makes them relevant in 2021. So stay tuned for that.
That is going to be a fun one.
We're going to miss you. I'm going to miss talking about awesome things like this Oberworth Harry and Sally limited edition 1 of 20 traffic red bag. But we're obviously still available. You can email us,
Leave comments,
try
stay
to
in
call
touch.
us or whatever, and we love it. We're having a good time.
And if you get bored and you miss us, we have, I have lost count now, 27,
28, 27, yeah, almost 30 episodes.
We have almost 30 episodes of Red Dot Forum Camera Talk covering just about everything you can imagine over this past year. So again, you miss us too much, go back, watch them. They're all on Red Dot Forum YouTube channel, and you can pick out whatever is of interest to you and sit back with a tall glass of whatever.
Something strong if you're going to watch us for 40 hours.
Something strong, and enjoy. And of course, you can always email us. You can leave a comment, and we are always happy to engage with you. We welcome it, and we do hope you guys have a really happy and healthy holiday season as we're coming into that, and really looking forward to the new year, 2021. It's going to be a whole new adventure.
Yes.
If you haven't already, please get subscribed to Red Dot Forum YouTube channel. Got to click that little subscribe button and that little notification bell so you know when we post new content. In the meantime, we will also be posting content to red.forum.com, to the webpage. I've got an ISO roundup, round 3, with the Q2 monochrome against the Q2 and the M10 monochrome against the M10R. So those actually did not exist when I did my second go around just back in the spring. So you definitely want to catch up on that. I've got all the test shots done. I'm doing my analysis, but then this came along and was like, what? It's
Yeah.
new and exciting.
Something different, yeah.
Let me take that,
Yeah.
because to quote my friend Rob, anything worth doing is worth doing tomorrow. So that's where that's going. So keep an eye out for that content on Red Dot Forum, as well as we're going to have an article on the new Focus firmware and some testing there, and probably have some additional content on the SL2-S as we keep putting it through its paces.
So again, you'll miss us on YouTube, but David has a ton of Red Dot Forum content in the
Coming.
pipeline.
Yep.
We will be doing some crazy cool stuff. So keep an eye on red.forum.com
Yep,
for some of the stuff that David is working on.
absolutely. And we will see you guys next year. This is super
Seriously.
exciting. So thanks, Josh. This has been an adventure this year.
For sure.
Thank you, Jose, for dealing with all of our
Chaos.
chaos and
Been fun.
Everybody, including Ashlyn,
whole
Gabriel, Peter, Kirsten, Julie, Risa, for putting up with
And so
all of our nonsense. Enzo, who's passed out.
who else would give us crap for not cleaning the back of the camera?
Yes,
So,
right. We would be lost without it. So
would
we
be
are
lost.
grateful for everybody that supports us and keeps us going and lets us do this, and for everybody for watching and submitting questions and calling us out on our nonsense. And, every time we drop something or say it depends 500 times.
I don't think I said it once this time.
I'm numb to it now. I don't even know. So thanks,
So
everybody.
here, just to keep things going. There you go.
Ah, there we go.
Had to drop
We had
something.
to drop at least one thing.
Yeah.
All right, I think we did it.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Again, have a happy holiday, a happy new year, and we will see you in 2021. Until then, take care.